Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Well, this will be a while before you hear the good morning song. The good morning song will turn to good evening song beginning next week, Monday. We will be going to Daring Dialogues for the evening edition for the rest of the season. So if you've not been paying attention, hopefully you will hear this announcement, and I will also put up another post as a reminder that we are going to evening broadcasts, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday for Daring Dialogues. Some of you will be able to catch me as your commute drive reading instead of your morning break. All right. So I am very excited about today. I'm very thankful. We do have a very important topic that I think is a needed topic that we're going to be covering today as we continue to look at the Entrepreneur's Playbook and finish up this segment on business from the Entrepreneur's Playbook. We're going to move right from this and we're going to talk about the skim on health insurance. This is a book that I recently picked up, and it's called How to Skim Your Life. It's actually got lots of practical tips in all kinds of areas. It reminds me very much of all the different subject matters that I like to talk about here on Daring Dialogues. And I happen to be looking through, and they have a whole section in here on taxes, how to skim your taxes legally. Now we're actually going to be looking at today, what is the skim on health insurance, and understanding these terms. A lot of people, when they first start a new job or things of that nature, you go through what's called a benefits meeting or a benefits section where they tell you what to sign, but they don't really give you a full understanding of what you're choosing for your plans or your packages. They just basically say, here's the option, sign. They don't try to really advise you. So this book has a whole section on health insurance, and we're going to cover it today. If we have time, we're going to go to our food book. If not, we'll come back to it next week because I want to talk to you a little bit about potatoes. Potatoes and corn right now are two crops that are in fairly serious danger of being just straight modification and not really real food when it comes to those two things. So I did want to talk to you all about potatoes today, but if we don't get to it, hopefully we will table it and come back to it next Friday. So let me start with the Entrepreneur's Playbook, more than 100 strategies, tips, and techniques to build a successful business. We are on the chapter talking about there is no sense making a mistake unless you can learn from it. This is a principle, and we've been talking about this principle 11 of this book. And what we're going to cover today is the fact that you have to admit your mistakes in business. One way of reducing mistakes ahead of time. Good morning to each and every one of you. Letting others help you learn. And you can learn from other people's mistakes by observing their patterns. This is one that I like to learn. That's one of the ways I like to learn. I like to observe patterns and make sure that I don't repeat the mistakes that I could observe from someone else. Whole other sermon. So let's talk about the fact that you have to admit your mistakes. And this is the book we're reading from is The Entrepreneur's Playbook by Leonard C. Green. You've seen this situation hundreds of times. You may, in fact, have been the main character yourself at least once. You work incredibly hard to develop a great product or service. You introduce it into the marketplace and it bombs. Your reaction? The problem wasn't me or my product. The problem was the market or the customer or whoever didn't appreciate what I had. It was a great product or service. The customers are idiots. That's all there is to it. Because you are convinced that you are right and everyone else is wrong, no learning takes place after the fact. There's nothing to learn, you argue. You did everything right. Written down this way, it sounds silly. The only person who gets to decide whether you have a truly great product is the customer. If they love it, you do. If they don't, you don't. If they don't buy what you're trying to sell them, you need to figure out the why. Otherwise, you run the very real risk of making the same mistake next time. Now, you could be right. It could have been a great product, but it might have been one that solved no real need. Or maybe it solved a need, but you did not communicate that need that it was solving clearly enough. Maybe it solved a need and the communication was good, but you need to figure out what the problem was. Make no mistake, there was a problem. Otherwise, the product would have sold. So figure out what went wrong and learn from it. One way of reducing mistakes ahead of time. Obviously, it would be better not to make mistakes. That's not possible. One way to reduce the number you and your staff are going to commit is to be extremely clear on your expectations up front. As an employee, you want to know whether the person you're working for only wants textbook answers or really wants solutions that are outside the norm and might be more effective than usual. Your boss will fall into either of these two camps. They will either be someone that demands a textbook answer, or they will be someone that's willing to let you find a solution outside of the norm. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. If you're hiring people, you need to tell them whether you want things strictly by the book or whether you want them to also use unconventional approaches to get the best answers. Knowing the approach that is expected will make everyone's life easier. Let others help you learn. I know that this is a hard one for many people because we like to think that we have all the answers within ourselves, especially if we're the brilliant geniuses that we know we are with a great idea and plan and business idea. Yeah, been there. As you analyze what went wrong, others to help you. If they were part of the decision making that led to the mistake, they may have insights that they didn't have before. If they were not part of the initial decision, they may be able to see things with fresh eyes. One of my friends put up I think it was like her mock edition of a magazine that she's getting ready to put out. And she just put up the front page and she said, hey, if anybody, this is my magazine, I'm getting ready to start, let me know what you think. Now, me as an editor, I clicked, there we go, sorry about that. I clicked on it and immediately I could see all the errors. Why? Because my eye has been trained to see errors. So after I got done looking at all the errors, then I went back through and I was reading for content. So I was like, well, this is really good content, but there are a whole lot of errors that you have to get through first to even be interested in the content. If my eye is reading and I have to keep correcting things, then that means I'm not going to be paying attention to your content. So I took just a screenshot of the first page and I went through and I showed her a couple of the errors on there. There were a lot more. I just didn't point them all out. I just pointed out a few and I told her, I said, you need an editor. You need an editor, and on top of that, you probably need an additional set of 2 other eyes if you're going to put something in publication, most people have at least 3 eyes on something before they hit publish. Now, I know there are a lot of leaders and pastors and business people that use social media. Most of those people, especially if they can afford it, they actually hire a social media account manager. And they should be hiring somebody that knows how to spell and knows how to put together noun and verbs and adjectives in subject and agreement. All right. You don't just hire your best friend to be your social media account manager, but that's a whole other story. If you are hiring someone to be a social media account manager, make sure they have basic grammatical skills. All right. Because again, in social media, it's a part of your branding. And so if you don't care about things like grammatical errors, that also translates in business that you will not be careful with my business. You will not be careful with me as a client. You will not be careful with my money. You will not be careful with my project. And I don't think people are connecting the dots, else they would actually stop, pause in what they're doing, and make sure that before I hit post or share or make public, right, I will at least read over my posting. And the good thing about something like Facebook is you can post your message only to yourself, and you can have someone read it and make those corrections and then go back and hit the public button. So there's ways of getting your message out without having to come back and do a whole lot of editing. But you do want to reduce your mistakes ahead of time. And one of the ways you could do that is by letting others help you. There's a tendency for senior leaders to not involve others in their after the fact analysis. Part of this, I believe, is that they simply don't think to do it. Another reason is that somehow they think they're going to be criticized or blamed for the mistake. Well, the leader is always ultimately responsible, so that's not a very good reason for not involving others. The reality is that you should not take it personally. You're all just trying to come up with better solutions together. You can learn from other people's mistakes by observing their patterns. The writer says here, I love reading biographies. I look for ideas that I can borrow and use in my own life. You know, if George S. Patton typically did X, Y, and Z, and he was successful, I'm also interested in how maybe if I do those 3 things, I will be successful too. I'm also interested in how people do different things differently. Steve Jobs is an example of using both positive and negative reinforcement. Steve would frequently call his employees and suppliers idiots or worse when they gave him a less than A+ answer or turned in less than A+ work. What I noticed in reading his biography was that denigrating people could have 2 effects. There were some who found his criticism devastating and never recovered. Clearly, it was a mistake to try to motivate those people that way. But for others, it was a motivating force. They were driven to show him that he was wrong and that they were capable of doing great work. After being criticized, they went back, tried even harder, and excelled. Now, I'm not Steve Jobs, but I wouldn't be calling people idiots. That's just me. For example, when Jobs wanted to use glass in his iPhone, he went to Corning to see if they could manufacture it for Apple. The president of Corning explained to Jobs that it couldn't be done from a technology point of view. Jobs told him to get his arms around it and find a way to do it. If you can't, you shouldn't be president. 6 months later, Corning was producing the Gorilla Glass that Apple needed for the phone. When the business is facing difficult times, I believe motivating people to work harder is essential. If the carrot doesn't work, use the stick. A checklist that can help you reduce your mistakes, and then we're going to be finishing this chapter. This book is actually out of print, which is too bad. But in the book, Getting It Right the Second Time by Michael Gresham, He came up with a wonderful checklist that you can use after something has failed to help you figure out why. Every failure is caused by different reasons, but invariably, if something went wrong, he says it can be attributed to one of the following reasons. And he has 13 reasons here, so you might want to jot them down since this book is out of print. Reason number 1, perception. People simply did not understand what you wanted the product or the service to be. Perception. Reason number 2, pitch. You stressed the wrong product attributes or you did it the wrong way. Number 3, price. It was too high or sometimes surprisingly too low. And sometimes if you're selling something and you price it too low, people won't buy it because they think something's wrong with it if it's priced that low. 4, packaging. Was it attractive or did it send the wrong message? 5, piggybacking. Sometimes coming out with a Me Too product is fine when the market for a certain type of product or service is exploding. Other times saying it works just as well as X is the wrong way to go. If the price is basically the same, people are going to go with the original product and not with your knockoff. 6, promotion. Would you really buy a luxury car because it's promoted as being least expensive in its class? Probably not. 7, promises. This one is almost always fatal. If you promise something or overpromise and don't deliver, you will lose the customer forever. 8, positioning. Is what you have the best or the cheapest, just as good as the leading brand at half the price? You need to make your positioning both explicit and appropriate for your product. 7-Up was a struggling soft drink before it began to position itself as the Un-Cola. 9, placement. Was the product in the right stores and in the right position within the store? If you're selling a high-end toy, you may not want to be in Toys R Us. Or would your product be better off near the register than down the aisle? 10, premium. Cracker Jack was just another failing snack food until they hit on the idea of including a prize, premium, in every package. 11, publicity. Did you get the word out and did you do it effectively? 12, perseverance. Did you give up too soon on your own product? 13, procedure. If you have a certain way of doing things, did you follow it in the case of your failure? If you always have 3 senior people to sign off for an idea or 2 people to look over your work, did they in the instance that you produced something? 4 takeaways. Number 1, be willing to make mistakes if you want to be successful. Doing the same thing over and over again may be safe, but you rarely grow if you take that route. You should continue to take calculated risks. Number 2, let the marketplace tell you whether you are right. It's great that you think you have the best product in the world, but if no one is buying it, you don't. Put another way, if the dogs won't eat the dog food, it's bad dog food no matter what you think. Number 3, analyze your mistakes. Always get input from other people. They may see things that you don't. And number 4, don't forget to learn from the mistakes of others. They can keep you from making the same mistake yourself. Next week, Lord willing, we're going to talk about principle number 12, which is the SWOT technique. SWOT. It is a technique that people use when they are facing a challenge and they're trying to solve a problem. So we'll talk about the SWOT technique next week. All right. Healthcare. Healthcare, very big topic here in the United States. And this is the section called Things No One Really Understands, the skim on health insurance and health care. The sure part of insurance feels elusive. How can you be sure you're not getting ripped off? How can you be sure you chose the best plan? The one thing you can be sure of is that everyone has a lot of questions about health insurance. So let's start with the first one. How do health insurance companies make their money? They make their money from customers paying monthly premiums. A health plan is a contract between you and an insurance company. It says that the insurance company will pay a portion of your medical bills if you get sick or hurt. To keep your plan, you pay your insurance company a certain amount every month. That's called your premium. The insurance company keeps that cash on hand to pay all or some of the bill when customers get sick. Because insurance companies have all the customers, they can negotiate the prices with doctors and hospital systems. The ones they have deals with are called your in-network hospitals and doctors. So the patient will end up with a smaller tab at the end of it. All the others are considered out of network, aka you're basically on the hook for most or all of the bill. So, how do you get a plan? It depends on your personal situation. If you are employed full-time, usually through work, if you have a 9 to 5 or 6 or 7, your employer will likely pay all or a portion of your premium, and the rest will be taken out of your paycheck every month. Legally, a large company, 50 people or more, is required to pay a portion of your insurance. If you're unemployed or self-employed through a government exchange, these are mostly run by the federal government, but some states have their own marketplaces. This means that the government acts like your employer and negotiates deals with providers. And you can visit healthcare.gov to check out plans. And we know that all of this is still changing because of the laws and our government currently right now trying to change these things. There's also Medicare for people over 65 and Medicaid for people whose salary is under a certain amount. These are low-cost plans that are partially paid for by the government. If you're under 26, if your family has a health insurance plan, you can stay on it for now. If you're about to turn 26, 2, take the time to enroll in your employer's plan or a marketplace plan. Because of your impending birthday, you can do this even if it's not during an open enrollment period. Open enrollment, when is that? If you're going to the marketplace route, aka through healthcare.gov, open enrollment generally starts in early November and goes through mid-December. If you're going through your employer's plan, it varies. Insert reminder to email your HR. You can enroll at any time if you experience what they call a qualifying life event. Sounds scary, but it often involves getting married, moving, having a child, or leaving your job. All of these things qualify. So, how much does a plan cost? This is also depending. On top of your monthly premium, there are other things you pay too. Fun times. Here, you'll generally have to make what they mean and why you should care. First off is the premium, as we already talked about. This is your monthly fee for getting insurance. All health plans have premiums, but some are higher than others. Deductible. This is the amount you have to pay toward your medical costs before your insurance company starts picking up part of the bill. This is the part that most people don't pay attention to. So if your deductible is $2,500, or in some of our cases, $7,500, you're on the hook for that much money out of pocket, on top of the premiums that you've already paid. Then your insurance raises its hand and says, okay, we'll take it from here. So you really do need to be paying attention to your deductible and not just your premium, because your premium is what's going to come out monthly, but your deductible is what you're going to have to keep dishing out until you reach that threshold and then your insurance will take over and pay from there. Copay. The flat fee that you pay for covered medical services after you've met your deductible. After you've met your deductible. Sounds like highway robbery. You have a premium, you have a deductible, and you have a copay. Like a cover charge without the open bar. This covers preventative care like annual physicals, and it may be fully covered by insurance, meaning no copay. Co-insurance. Once you hit your deductible, you still have to pay a certain percentage of your medical bills. So let's say your co-insurance is 20%. Once you hit your deductible, a $100 doctor's bill will now only cost you $20. So if you look at your insurance plan and you have a premium to pay, your deductible to pay, a copay, and a co-insurance, you're getting robbed in 4 different ways. This is why I say stay healthy. These are not just definitions in a tedious dictionary. It's important to know the difference between these things, because when you want to take into account all the costs that come along with staying healthy, these are the things you have to look at. Generally, plans with lower monthly premiums will have higher deductibles, and plans with higher premiums will have lower deductibles. So don't get that immediate heart eyes at the low premium plan. All right. Things to know. Out-of-pocket max. The limit does exist. It's the most you'll pay during your coverage period, usually 12 months. If your out-of-pocket max is $6,000, you will never have to pay over that amount during the year of your benefits coverage. So people who have out-of-pocket max, once you hit $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,500, you won't be paying anything over that. Ultimately, your bill will depend on your age, it will depend on where you live, and it will depend on your plan. But to give you an idea, in a year, the average cost for a single person to pay for a year of health care range from $6,000 to $10,000. Give me some plan types. H to the MO. The two main plan types you will see are HMO and PPO. Here are the differences between them and why you might want to choose one over the other. Good morning. All right. Because again, this is not explained in a benefits meeting. I've yet to see it explained in a benefits meeting. All right. For when you are the monogamous type, consider putting a ring on an HMO. This pays only for health care that's in network, aka hospitals that insurance providers have negotiated deals with. Premiums tend to be lower, but these plans require you to get a referral from a primary care physician in order to see a specialist. If you are not picky and want to pay less monthly, this might be for you. For when you are the playing the field type, consider going for a PPO. This covers care that's both in and out of network. But for all these options, you'll pay a higher monthly premium, and you still end up paying more for out of network care than in network care. So if you want more fishing in the healthcare sea, but you don't mind paying up, then this might be for you. This all sounds expensive. So what are some ways to save? There are savings accounts for that, specific ones. Health savings accounts, or HSAs, and flexible savings accounts, FSAs, are savings accounts specifically for your health insurance plans. You can contribute pre-tax dollars to them to save and pay for these pricey deductibles, co-pays, and prescriptions. The biggest difference between them, with an HSA, any money you don't use in the account rolls over to the next year. But to be able to qualify for an HSA, you need to have a high deductible health plan, at least $1,350. If you have the option, it's a safer bet since the money rolls over regardless of whether or not you use it that year. With an FSA, there's no eligibility requirement, but it is use it or lose it, meaning you'll have to say goodbye to any unused balance. But there are two options your plan may have. They may have a $500 flat rollover or a 2.5-month grace period to spend the remainder of the funds. Saving money grace. Pro tip. Amazon has a page of FSA or HSA eligible items. So, what if you just lost your job? What can you do about health insurance? You have COBRA to help in the short term. COBRA stands for Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. Translation: it's a federal law that may let you keep your health insurance after you lose your full-time job. The catch: it's only for a limited time, usually 18 months. It's for full-time employees. That means it doesn't apply to people who freelance. And the biggest drawback to COBRA is that you have to pay the full cost of the premium when your employer was paying a portion of it before. This also applies to divorce if you were on your partner's plan. Because COBRA can get pricey, experts recommend that you also look into marketplace plans. Losing your job is considered a qualifying event, so you can enroll at any time. Am I covered even if I'm an OOO for a medical reason? Whether you had a baby, got sick, or are taking care of a family member, you may be able to take some much needed time and stay covered. But it depends on where you live and what your plan is. On the federal level, all employees working at large companies, 50 or more, are allowed 12 weeks of protected leave for these medical reasons. The catch: the leave doesn't have to be paid, so many people cannot afford to take it. Individual states have been enacting their own laws to make this better for employees. New York, California, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Washington all have paid family leave policies. Yes. And a company's insurance plan may come with its own paid leave policy, which is usually better than the federal requirement. So, what about fertility coverage? This is very important, especially for African American women. If you're looking to become pregnant, especially in your later years. If you're going through fertility treatments like IVF, there's a chance that part of it is covered. If you work full-time and get insurance through your job, your HR department can elect to provide this. Contact them to see if your plan covers you. When it comes to egg freezing, most plans do not cover that, but that appears to be changing. A growing number of tech companies now cover the procedure, and if you have a diagnosed fertility problem, you may be able to get egg freezing covered. If you're on a marketplace plan and your fertility coverage depends on the state you live in, Massachusetts, Maryland, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Arkansas, California, Hawaii, Illinois, Louisiana, Montana, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Texas, and West Virginia all offer some form of coverage, but it's not a federal rule to cover this type of treatment. How do I file an insurance claim? The easiest way to do this is to have your medical service provider, reception at your doctor's office, submit the claim electronically. But if your doctor is out of network, you might have to file the claim yourself. Contact your insurance company or visit their website to receive your claims form. You will need things like your policy number, your group plan number, and the reasons for the service. What should I do if the claim gets denied? Contact your insurance company. The info should be on the back of your insurance card and on the denial letter. And come to the call prepared. Bring a list of questions about the denial and gather documents like your policy, the summary of benefits and coverage, and the denial letter. Your claim may have been denied because of a simple error, and it's worth fighting for that payment. Do I really need insurance? With the rising cost of healthcare, growing numbers of people have been saying thanks but no thanks and opting out of insurance altogether. About 1 in 5 Americans reportedly do not have insurance. This may seem attractive in the short term as less money will be taken out of your monthly paycheck. But, oh Lord, my Periscope people have stopped this. All right, we are back. Sorry about that, Periscope. I'm not sure what happened, but hopefully people will come back in. All right, sorry about that. I'm not sure why it dropped. So there are a lot of people who are not on insurance. 1 in 5. That's a lot of people. As the writer was saying, this may seem attractive in the short term as less money will be taken out of your paycheck. But if something unforeseen happens and you need treatment, you could end up paying way more than those monthly payments would add up to. What is healthcare in the U.S.? Why, is healthcare in the U.S. so confusing? Healthcare is extremely expensive and politicians are extremely divided on how the country should handle it. One thing you keep hearing is Medicare for all or the single payer system. That is what Canada now has. It means the federal government takes care of everyone's bill. Team Pro Single Payer says it will provide health care for the largest number of Americans and streamline the complicated system. Team Anti-Single Payer says it will hike taxes way up for Americans and make people wait in long lines for care. Health insurance has an unhealthy amount of confusion surrounding it, but regardless of your opinion on how it should be handled, you need to know what you are signing up for. So I hope that was at least helpful to you to actually get some understanding around all the terms that you hear during your benefit session. And for those of you who are getting new jobs and those of you who are making transitions. Let's talk about my last topic for today from my story of food. Let's talk about the story of the potato. All shapes and sizes, potatoes have been cultivated to produce a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors with a range of flavors and cooking characteristics. Now, I know Americans are probably just used to the Idaho potato, right? But all of these are potatoes. Some look like French fries. Some look like clusters of grapes. All right. All of these are potatoes. Potatoes, the legacy of the Incas. Unknown beyond South America until the 16th century, the humble potato has since been on a bumpy journey from exotic curiosity to peasant lifeline to universal vegetable consumed by more than 1 billion people worldwide. A starchy tuber, the potato is the swollen underground stem of a dark green, slightly hairy-leafed plant with blue, pink, or white flowers. As a member of the nightshade family, it is related to potatoes are related to tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and tobacco, as well as to poisonous plants such as the mandrake and the deadly nightshade. Potatoes themselves contain a poisonous compound called solanine, which is present in small, harmless amounts throughout the plant. However, the poison becomes concentrated in green potatoes, ones that have been exposed to light during storage, and in the sprouts. For example, potatoes are chitted or prepared for planting. They were first cultivated in the cool highlands of Peru and Bolivia, possibly between around 8,000 and 5,000 BCE, although the earliest wild potato remains found in southern Chile. They have been dated to 11,000 BCE. The tubers aided the colonization of mountain areas because they could grow at altitudes where maize crops, the staple food of early South American people, was failing. Different types of potatoes were cultivated at different altitudes, and soon they began to vary in size, shape, and color. The Incas, whose empire emerged in the 13th century CE, relied heavily on the potato and cultivated thousands of new varieties. Arriving in South America between 1510 and 1530, Spanish conquistadors witnessed the Inca potato planting ceremonies and soon realized the food value of the unfamiliar vegetable. The exact date of the arrival of potatoes in Europe is unknown. They were planted in the Canary Islands around 1570 and carried from there to Spain and then further around Europe, usually as an exotic gift or a botanic curiosity. By the early 17th century, the potato was known, if not widely cultivated, in much of Europe, and it had even reached North American colonies of Virginia, where it was introduced by the English privateer Nathaniel Butler. Most farmers and cooks, however, did not embrace the potato immediately, dismissing it as food fit for animal feed and food only fit for the poor. The potato's reputation was not improved by its association with evil, possibly due to the similarity of its flowers and berries to the nightshade plant, which were linked in folklore to witchcraft and the devil. Even as late as 1869, the English writer and social thinker John Ruskin damned the potato as scarcely innocent underground stem of one of a tribe set aside for evil. Now, can you imagine that? Eating a potato was seen as evil at some point. It took a former French army pharmacist, Antoine Augustin Parmentier, to champion potatoes as a desirable and healthy food after being fed them while a prisoner of the Prussians during the 7 Years' War. His research found that, contrary to popular opinion, potatoes were indeed nutritious, and he campaigned to convert the French to the food. He is even said to have persuaded King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, to sport potato flour buttonholes and set a new fashion. Such was his success that his name lives on in potato dishes such as pommes parmentières, diced potatoes fried in butter. And there is both an Avenue Parmentier and a metro station named after him in Paris. By the time the German naturalist and explorer Alexander von Humboldt made a 5-year expedition to South America, potatoes were seen as a positive contribution to European life. And he is quoted as saying, "The continent has given us one great blessing and one great curse. The blessing is the potato and the curse is tobacco." New potato varieties had been developed that could flourish in the more temperate European climates. These made an invaluable addition to the peasant diet hit by a series of famines in the 18th century. By the early 19th century, potatoes were being grown on a large scale, and as people began to move from country to town during the Industrial Revolution, they became a cheap, easy to grow, and nutritious, convenient food. However, potatoes grown in Europe and North America contained a fatal flaw: inbreeding, and this led to a vulnerability to disease. The first hint of catastrophe came in 1844 through 1845, when a fungus developed, which caused a disease known as late blight, devastated Europe's potato crop. In Ireland, where the crop of all crops made up 80% of the calorie intake for the poor, this was especially ruinous. So between 1845 and 1848, 1 million people died of starvation or disease, with further millions driven away from Ireland by the potato famine, most of them now immigrating to North America as they were escaping starvation in their own country. However, it was in that continent where another pest of the potato emerged, the Colorado potato beetle. In its native Mexico, the beetle fed on buffalo burr. But as the beetle spread to the U.S., it quickly adapted to the new food that it found planted in vast quantities. The beetle first began destroying potato crops in Nebraska around 1860, and it spread east, and by 1874 it had reached the Atlantic coast. From there, the Colorado potato beetle soon spread to Western Europe, where it also began to be a major threat to the crops over there. While the popularity of the potato was now spreading in Europe and North America, it was also becoming known further east. Early in the 17th century, European sailors had taken the tubers on voyages to India, China, and Japan. They were a useful source of vitamin C. Colonial expansion and immigration over the next 200 years carried the potato to North Africa, Australia, and even back to South America. The 20th century saw the potato emerge as a truly global food, aided by inventions such as the mechanical peeler, the mass production of fast food, including the French fry. Today, potatoes are the basis of some of the most popular dishes and snacks all over the world, ranging from fish and chips, the Ireland dish of cold cannon, Italy's gnocchi, Switzerland's rosti, Sweden's hasselback, and a popular potato and cauliflower curry commonly served in India and Pakistan, the aloo gobi. Food for the future. Scientists are currently working on developing drought-resistant and blight-resistant potatoes. In 1995, NASA astronauts successfully grew 5 small potatoes on the space shuttle Columbia, and the International Potato Center in Peru is investigating whether potatoes can grow under the atmospheric conditions of Mars. The potato. So, potatoes went from being called food from the devil to food that could save lives, and it becomes a global staple all around the world. Isn't it interesting how we take literally anything and demonize it? Because back in the day, had you been munching on some French fries, they would have said you was of the devil. Now we can laugh at that today and think, oh, that's ridiculous. But it wasn't ridiculous to those people. All right? Thank God for the evolution of the mind, right? I want to thank you all for participating in today's talk. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. If you want to chop it up with us in our audience response, you can visit Periscope, and I'm going to place the link here so you can hear our audience response to today's lessons. Again, beginning next week, we will be on in the evenings instead of the mornings at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to thank you for tuning in today. If you want to check us out for our audience response, you can go to the link below. You do not have to be a member of Periscope to hear the audience response. You can actually watch it online, or you can add your own account. Take care, and God bless.